Welcome back, everyone. This is Week 8, the Part 1 episode of the Fan Bros Podcast. Now, we've been saying it the last couple times, but it's getting down to the nitty-gritty.
Yeah, it's time to start looking towards the playoffs. It's time to start gearing for the playoffs. Bye weeks are upon us. We got some holds, we got some drops. We're about to get into it.
I really think the next 2 to 3 weeks is kind of what defines how you're set up to, one, make the postseason, and then two, capitalize in the postseason and go to the finals. So we're hoping to bring a lot of stuff to you these next couple weeks, next couple episodes, and we really hope it's some stuff that can help you take it to the next level. So today what we're going to do, we never officially touched on the Antonio Brown signing, so we're going to go through what that means for him and other people in the Bucs. Then we've got a fan question, and it's a good question. Who is the handcuff we prefer to own for the rest of season? And the three main ones that come to mind are Latavius Murray, Jamal Williams, and Alexander Madison. So we'll kind of break that down pretty quickly. Then the first segment we want to hit y'all with is called Hold or Drop. So with bye weeks coming up, we're going to touch on guys who are either on bye in the next couple weeks or guys who are just, you're not sure if there's somebody you should hold or drop because you need that extra space for the bye weeks coming. So we're going to touch on a bunch of players and say, what do we do with those guys? Hold them or drop them. After that, we're going to move and touch on a few trade targets again. We want to revisit this every 2 or 3 weeks. Try to get some guys to buy on the low, sell on the high for the stretch. And lastly, we'll touch on some more deep bench stashes because every week it's always good to be a week or two ahead of the competition when you know what to look for when it comes to a waiver wire guy before you got to put in a premium claim for him. So let's kick it off.
And before we get into that, if you're a follower of the Twitter page or you listen to the last couple episodes, we made a little wager. It's time to talk about who's drinking the Loco. And I'm not too happy to say that I lost. And this Sunday will be a live video of me shotgunning a Four Loko to the Dome before game day.
And when we look at the numbers after the fact,
oh my God,
you kind of figured it was going to come down to that touchdown. If Robbie Anderson had scored a touchdown with the same amount of yardage, he would have been number 14, and Hunter would win the bet. I would be the one banging the Loco. But DJ Moore caught both touchdowns. So outside of the top 15, and Sunday is going to be a gold kind of day for Hunter. So catch us on Twitter around kickoff time. We'll have something nice for you.
Let's get into it.
So Antonio Brown signing. Give us your thoughts on it, Hunter.
Well, looking at Scotty Miller, you'd think that if he takes his role on the field and being probably still more explosive than Scotty, even though Scotty's really fast, he's probably got a little, a role in the offense. Now, whether that's weekly, startable role, that's kind of questionable. And what the coach has been saying, Bruce Arians, he's an insurance policy, needs to learn the whole playbook stuff. So I don't know if he'll be, right away startable, but I think that in a couple weeks, maybe after this week, next week, he probably will be startable just because of the boom-bust factors, like wide receiver 3 potentially.
Yeah, I can see it. I find myself on more of the negative side as far as Antonio Brown goes. Now, there is a world where he emerges in a group of hurt wide receivers. Everybody's kind of dinged up. That's why he's there, according to Coach Arians. But there's a world where he is the best guy immediately on an explosive offense and finishes as kind of a wide receiver 1 kind of talent. It's not out of the equation. But I also see more scenarios where he either, A, does not finish the year with the Bucs or does not make a huge splash to make him super fantasy relevant. So for him, I would hold him. I wouldn't look to trade for him. I think maybe in 3 or 4 weeks we'll kind of see what we've got with him. I think, if anything, it downgrades a little bit of Godwin, Mike Evans, and Gronk just because there's another talented mouth to feed. But I'm not even really knocking those guys much. I'm almost, personally, I'm just kind of ignoring Antonio Brown in the whole situation. The only way I'm acknowledging him is via Tom Brady, which I think this does bump Tom Brady. At the very least, he's going to have a bump, and he'll probably finish as a top 10 quarterback.
Oh, for sure. Tom Brady is looking, man. If you got Tom, you might have even picked him off the wire. Tom Brady could win you the league right now. The way he's throwing the ball and that many weapons, man, that's crazy.
Yeah, with the exception of that Thursday night game against Bears,
man,
he's had 3 of his last 4 games have been big time games.
Yeah.
Top 10, probably top 5 finishes. So, it looks like Belichick might not have been the mastermind we thought, and Brady was a little more part of the success they had in New England if you look at his new home versus his old home.
Yeah, you're definitely starting Tom Brady, like, no doubt. Like, you're set and forget on that.
Definitely.
Let's get into the Pudge question, though. So, who is the handcuff to own for the rest of the season? Latavius Murray, Jamal Williams, or Alexander Madison Ivy? I'll go first, and just purely off of the current situation and who I think is the overall better backup, just off of skill, is Jamal Williams. And they run the ball a lot, kind of even more than the Vikings. And the Vikings, with Kubiak, they're running it pretty hard. But Jamal Williams looks explosive. Aaron Rodgers, if you listen to the other podcasts, I talk about him on the Pat McAfee show, just raving about Jamal Williams. And you see this week that he is, who we thought he is. He could supplement and be a potential fringe RB1, definitely an RB2 plug and play. So I think Jamal Williams is the back to own here. And with Aaron Jones' current situation right now.
Between the next two, then, who do you pick between Madison or Latavius? You got to have, who's your number 2 and 3?
Definitely Madison, because Latavius, he's good, and it's all about the situation. Cook has been injured, so I just feel like Madison will actually have potential weeks where he's getting the full workload over Latavius, because Kamara hasn't looked hurt all year, and he looks like a fucking tank right now. So that's what off the situation in real life. That's what I would do right now.
So you go Jamal Williams, Madison, Latavius.
Yeah, that's my 3.
Okay, which mine's going to be the exact same order for a little bit of a different reason. I wouldn't say a different reason, but for one, Kamara does not miss many games.
Yeah.
So I like Murray if he were to step in that role, but we've seen it already with Aaron Jones and Dalvin Cook.
Yeah.
They've missed some time, whereas Latavius is still the pipe dream. Now, he holds more standalone value, so that does make him a little more interesting. He could be startable in a pinch because he's getting the goal line look still versus the other guys, and then when I look at Jamal versus Madison, with both guys having been on the field as a starting role, it was a night and day difference when they got the opportunity. Jamal Williams last week looked good, had a big fantasy day. Madison was just the darling going into the Falcons game and did not do anything. Now, I understand game script wasn't in his favor, but he doesn't offer a whole lot in the passing game, whereas Jamal Williams does. So, one more thing. We touched on it last episode. The Green Bay playoff schedule, fantasy-wise, is super soft for the running backs. So, with Aaron Jones already having the soft tissue and the schedule being nice, Jamal Williams today is a preferred own. And those other two, I kind of look at them in a similar one. They both should be owned, but I guess I would go Madison too because Kamara missing time is not nearly as likely as those other ones. So, we both go Jamal Williams, Alexander Madison, Latavius Murray in that order.
Let's get into the whole drops, get right into it. It's a long, girthy list right here. Let's start off with one this week, Christian Kirk. Now, he had those 2 big games. Now, one of the big games was only 3 targets, but he caught 2 of them for bombs. So, I think he's droppable because I don't see that happening, coming off the bye. And one of those weeks, DeAndre Hopkins really didn't do anything. He kind of stole his shine. I feel like that's not going to happen a lot. And I know roster situations are getting tough, so he's a drop for me right now.
Yeah, for me, he's somebody you can drop, but I would advise a hold because he himself is coming off he had some injuries early in the year. Mm-hmm. And so I think he's still ascending while Fitz is kind of fading out of the picture. And I think they'll be in a lot of competitive games. So I do like to hold him, but understand if he's a drop, he's not a must hold. So that's how we feel about him. Next up, we have Devin Singletary. So he's an interesting one. We touched on him with one of our first episodes that he was a sell high candidate because when Zach Moss returned, it's a 50-50, and I don't consider him a drop guy here because we've seen him have RB2 value. I'm not super thrilled about owning him. He's riding the bench, but I don't advise to drop here because he's still got more value than a lot of the question marks there.
Yeah, I'm a hold as well. I'm not ready to drop him, and specifically because Moss got hurt again. If Moss gets hurt again, he is RB2 value, but it's kind of weird right now because Yeldon's getting some looks. Moss gets some looks now that he's healthy again. But he is the lead back in a backfield you probably want to have a back in. So I'm not dropping him.
I'm with you on that one.
Let's go into some Jaguars receivers. We got the duo, Keelan Cole and Down Shall Not pass. I'm willing to drop Keelan Cole, but I've talked about it before. He's so explosive. Like, could be a plug and play when you have an injury, and he could have 60 yards and a touchdown. That's not out of the realm of possibility. And he's had weeks where he's had double-digit targets, but I mean, he just had a dud of a game where 2 targets, 1 catch, 12 yards. I mean, that alone is a droppable week, but I'm willing to hold him and drop Shenault just because I don't even know if Shenault has a touchdown on the year yet. He just has a bunch of yardage and run plays. I could be wrong on that, but I just feel like Keelan Cole is like a more targeted receiver in their pass game, even though he's coming off a dud week. So I would hold Cole, drop Shenault.
Okay, so Shenault, I think he scored 1 time, and it might have been week 1.
Okay.
I go ahead and drop both of those. DJ Chark's the only one I want right now. And a big part of it is Doug Marrone has strongly hinted that Gardner Minshew might get yanked if he continues to play poorly. And if that does happen, I couldn't even tell you who's next in their backup, and I don't want any part of anybody but Chark. So for me, even Keelan Cole, along with Laviska Shenault, I think you can drop them with bye weeks coming up if you need to.
Yeah, if Gardner is pulled, very droppable, 100% droppable, and then trade for James Robinson in that scenario.
Definitely.
Let's get into the next one. Got some Rams here. Got the Higbee with, missed the game, or did he play the game that got hurt?
No, he missed. He missed Monday night game.
He missed the Monday night game. Munt and Everett got a little touchdown, and Munt got some work. Malcolm Brown and Cam Akers. How about you get into it first?
So I'll go down the line. Tyler Higbee, the injury makes it a for sure drop. I still had hope that he would kind of capitalize the red zone looks, but right now I think there's a lot better people, and he's still dinged up. So I say you drop Higbee. Malcolm Brown, I say hold. He got the touchdown last week, which kind of maybe gives you a little more positivity towards him than you should. Henderson's still the guy there. But he's at the worst a premium handcuff, and he still has a little bit of value alone with some red zone work. So I hold him. And then Cam Akers, the other back, he's the odd man out. I drop him. So Higbee and Cam Akers drop. Malcolm Brown, I'm holding.
I'm kind of with you on that. Higbee, the injury does kind of solidify the drop here because Everett, before the Higbee explosion year, we're going back a couple years, but Everett finished the year really strong, and he was getting started going into that playoff season for fantasy. I think that was 2 seasons ago. Then Higbee comes out, and Higbee takes over, finishes the year strong, and Everett looks good. I mean, they're kind of splitting tight end work right now, and now Higbee going down. That Munt guy kind of stepping up, looking good. I drop Higbee. Malcolm Brown, I get what you're saying, because if Henderson gets hurt, I mean, that's a plug-and-play RB2 at that point. They run the ball so much. But I don't know if Henderson's going to get hurt. I'm willing to drop all 3, even though I think Cam Akers is a more talented back than Malcolm Brown. Malcolm Brown's trusted in the offense, so I don't think Cam Akers will see the light of day, really. So I'm willing to drop all 3, but if I'm holding one, I'm holding Malcolm Brown.
Let me put you on the spot here. Tevin Coleman's available on your waiver wire, and you have Malcolm Brown. Are you dropping Malcolm Brown to pick up Tevin Coleman?
100%. Tevin Coleman started off the season with a lot of carries when he was splitting the work with Raheem Mostert healthy. I think he had one game where he had 13 carries. Granted, that was not a lot of yards. If I remember right, it was 44 yards. I think it was week 2. But still, that's 13 carries. And then you look back the previous season, he was getting games where he had 18 carries, 20 carries, where he had a 3-touchdown game when, backs were hurt and he was the starting back. And that's kind of what's going on right now. So I would definitely pick up Tevin Coleman. I mean, he might not play this week. I think he's designated to come back next week. But still, I mean, that's a potential RB1 week kind of guy. And the current situation, he's a plug-and-play RB2 with my name Jeff going down and some other guys not healthy yet. So I like that.
Okay. Moving on, we'll touch on Jarvis Landry. Now, I think your first impression might be definite hold because ODB went down. Odell Beckham got hurt. He's done for the year. But it looks like Higgins and Peoples-Jones are kind of the next guys up with Jarvis Landry. Now, having said that, I still hold Jarvis Landry just because he's still kind of a safe name there. I think he might be steady enough to play as a wide receiver 3 or flex most weeks if you needed to. It's kind of interesting to see how this shakes out. I'm not ready to bail on him yet if I'm an owner, so I hold Jarvis Landry even though I'm not loving it.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I'm holding Jarvis strictly off of the connection that him and Baker had last season, even with Odell Beckham there. I think he finished the season really well. So if he could get that going again, he's going to get a bump in targets. And I know it hasn't been pretty yet, and the touchdowns haven't been there, and really the yardage hasn't been there. But I don't think Peoples-Jones and Higgins are going to get the touchdowns every week. I could be wrong about that because Baker is kind of spreading the ball around a lot, but I just feel like there's a connection there that's going to kind of show when it's in crunch time in the future now that ODB's out. Going into the next one, we got Geo Bernard, and it's if Mixon returns this week, do you hold Geo through the bye? I say no. I'm not holding Geo. I mean, he had the good week last week because Mixon's out, but I guess he's a good handcuff, but I know it's crunch time for a lot of people. For me, I'm dropping people. I need to fill spots, so I'm willing to drop them.
So I'll start this off with I don't expect Mixon to play this week, so in that case, you hold and probably play Geo.
Mm-hmm.
But assuming he comes back, yeah, I'm the same. I'm a Mixon owner, and I'll probably drop Geo when first possible. I don't consider Mixon an injury-prone back. So with the bye coming up, I'm not holding him for 2 or 3 weeks as a handcuff. So if Mixon comes back this week, Geo for me too. He's getting dropped. Next, we want to move to a couple Cowboys receivers. So first up, Michael Gallup, who with Andy Dalton leaving now, he has not looked very good. Do you go ahead and give up on him?
Yeah, I'm definitely dropping Gallup. That's kind of weird to say because you go back 4 weeks talking about dropping Gallup. People might kick you out of the league depending on how serious your league is. But he's definitely droppable. The fucking Gingers are killing me this season. I don't know if you guys know, but I have red hair. And Andy Dalton, Carson Wentz. It's just an embarrassment out here right now for us. But yes, you drop Gallup, and I would keep CD just of how explosive he is, but man, I have a short leash on that whole situation. Everyone's roster is different. If you need to make the move, I'm willing to drop CD too, but man, CD just looks so explosive, and you only think that he'll get better as the season goes on, as most rookies do, especially wide receivers. But I'm willing to drop both of them 100%, but I'd like to hold CD in this situation that you can.
I feel the same way. A little more bold, feel stronger on the hold CD train. I'm not letting him go yet, but if what I see the next 2 weeks is not eclipsing 50 yards in either week, no touchdowns, then I'm very well likely to drop him. So CD, hold for a while. He's good enough. He's the true 2. But keep an eye on him. And Gallup, it's a shame. I was looking to trade for him 4 or 5 weeks back and kept getting turned down. And now it's time to cut bait. Everything changes so fast. The Cowboys' offense is not even close to what we thought it might be post-Dak. So Michael Gallup can go.
Yeah, not even to talk about their line, but damn. It's kind of funny how the tables have turned. The Cowboys fans were feeling like they were back or something. Even though they were losing games, man, it's just kind of karma, honestly. Fuck Dallas. Let's go into the shit show New York Jets with Adam Face Gase. What are you doing with Frank Gore and Jameson Crowder?
So I'll start with Frank Gore. I'm cutting bait with Frank Gore. If anybody there's to own, it's P. Ryan at this point. He scored last week, and he's arrow pointing up. Looks like finally Frank Gore is not going to be the premier guy there. That being said, I still don't love to pick up P. Ryan, but if we're talking about Gore, that's an easy drop for me.
Yeah.
Jameson Crowder's interesting because he was just on a tear, on pace for unbelievable amount of targets and receptions. He missed last week with a groin injury. Sam Darnold even potentially being talked about on the trade block. But if I can, I hold Crowder. If you're in a super pinch, you can drop him because he might miss another week or 2 with the groin. But I'm holding him. I like what I see from him. So drop Gore, hold Jameson Crowder.
Yeah, I'm on the same boat. Frank Gore, I don't even know how he was even kind of really fantasy relevant, but I guess he was. He was getting a lot of carries, and injuries happened. But I'm so out of the Frank Gore situation. P. Ryan was kind of the darling of the training camp. We were hearing all the hype, even with Bell there, which was weird. And, in retrospect, seeing everything go down, it kind of makes sense because they were trying to get rid of Bell the whole time, I guess. So, but, yeah, if you're owning him back, it's P. Ryan. And I'm definitely keeping Crowder. He's only played 4 games. He has 46 targets. That's a shit ton of targets, even though, I mean, it's not really a good offense to be in. He's had good games and good yardage, and he's had a touchdown. So I'm willing to hold Crowder just because if he's there, they don't have anyone else to throw to, at all, So, and Flacco's not going to be there forever, Darnold will be back, and hopefully Crowder will be healthy during that time period and get another double-digit game for you. So I'm definitely willing to hold Crowder.
I'm going to add a little bit to Crowder. So he was on pace for a top 10 finish in per game. So I'm also looking to acquire him if I'm an owner who is at the top and can probably get him cheap for somebody who contributes now. Mm-hmm. I would rather go look to trade on the super cheap for Crowder than drop him.
Yeah.
So next up on the Broncos is Jerry Big Booty Judy. What do you feel about him?
He's just too explosive in my opinion, and we've said it before. The rookies figured out kind of in the second half of the season. Not saying he's going to be a wide receiver 2 value, but I think he'll have another kind of big game where he can get a go route for a touchdown or break a slant for a TD. So I'm willing to hold him, but if you're in a pickle, I'm not holding him over, I don't know, another player. I would drop him if you're, in a pickle. But if you can hold, I'm definitely looking to hold him.
I would hold Judy as well. Tim Patrick got hurt in that game. It was a really tough game for them offensively. I think with Locke back, I think they kind of ascend as the season goes on. I still like Judy more than a lot of the guys we're talking about here. So hold on to Jerry Judy. Tim Patrick, I would probably drop. He got hurt. So Jerry Judy and Noah Fant are the only guys I want in the Broncos passing offense.
Yeah. Let's go into the 49ers revolving door with Mostert, Wilson, and McKinnon. I'll start it off. Obviously, you have to hold Mostert because he is an RB1 when healthy. You can't really acquire those late in the season, so you're not going to drop that. Someone's going to scoop him up. He's going to get healthy. He's going to have a couple games. You're going to be pissed as fuck, and you're going to help someone win a week. So it's a loss. You're holding him. Jeff Wilson, my name, Jeff. You cut him. Cut ties. Get out of there. I don't know what the fuck happened. He caught a hammy after his 3rd touchdown. Just couldn't handle the workload. I don't know what's going on. Get out of there. McKinnon, shout out Trey Hicks. Man, you cut him. I don't know what's going on. Shanahan said he's giving him rest. From what? The week before he didn't do shit either. What are we doing? What are we talking about here? If he's not good and you have other backs better than that, just fucking say that, Shanahan. But I digress. Yeah. And then we talked about Coleman. I'm sure he's added in your league. We talked about it last week. Trying to get you ahead of the train. But if he's there somehow, you scoop up Tevin Coleman right now. No questions asked. 100%.
Okay, so I'll go down the line and feel mostly the same. Raheem Mostert for sure hold. If I'm an owner who's looking sure thing for the playoffs, I might try to trade for Mostert if that owner's hurting. So he's the one you want to keep, and because he's going to be back, Jeff Wilson, he's got to go. He had a hell of a game, but he's still a 2nd or 3rd fiddle, and with one of those guys like Mostert back later, there's no telling what kind of role he has. So cut Jeff Wilson. McKinnon now. It's probably easy for me to say because I'm not an owner, but I want to hold him for another week or so just to see how it shakes out now, because it's going to be Hasty, McKinnon, and maybe Coleman.
Yeah.
I want to see what that looks like. I do not advise anybody starting him, but unless there's just somebody premium on your waiver wire to pick up, I'm still going to hold Jerick McKinnon, even though that was just an awful show. And yeah, Tevin Coleman too, hold him. He might provide value for 2 or 3 weeks, maybe beyond, depending how he shows out.
Let's get right into the Chicago situation. David Montgomery, Jimmy Graham. Quickly go over David Montgomery. I'm not dropping him. We talked about the soft playoff schedule. We did a little tweet. It was about King Henry, but the yak and winner running backs increases a lot. And I know he's not Derrick Henry, but I'm sure if we could pull up his yak from last season during the winter months, yards after contact, it'd probably be a lot better. So you're holding Montgomery for sure. Jimmy Graham, man, that's a weird situation because Foles just looks so streaky. He's either eating shit or throwing dimes, and a lot of times he's eating shit. And I don't know if it's the play calls. I don't know if it's the rhythm of the offense. He just can't get with it. Can't get with the cadence. I don't know, but I'm willing to drop Jimmy Graham. I just feel like there's probably other tight ends you could maybe spot start a couple weeks. And if you're in a situation where Jimmy Graham's your plug-and-play tight end, man, you're in a shitty situation. I'm sorry. You should probably have to keep him, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, that's for sure. So, David Montgomery, I mean, my confidence is declining by the week.
Yes.
But a droppable guy, I mean, he gets way too many touches to be even close to droppable. So, he's just somebody you might have to just ride it out, but don't plan for him to be an every week startable back unless he shows out some of these upcoming soft matchups. Jimmy Graham, I cut him loose for sure. I mean, it looks like I don't know if this guy's name for sure. Cole Kmet, is that right?
Yeah.
The other tight end on the Bears. He looks to be the better tight end now. He's a rookie from Notre Dame, and he's replacing slowly what Jimmy Graham can provide. So cut bait with Jimmy Graham. There's a lot of people. If somebody had dropped Gesicki, I still prefer Gesicki.
Oh, hell yeah.
Even Trey Burton.
Yeah.
You know, I prefer those guys over Jimmy Graham, and some of them are on the waiver wire, so cut bait with him as well.
So let's go right into the Buffalo Bills. Cole Beasley, Zach Moss, John Brown. Cole man, he's had some sneaky weeks. He's kind of looking good. I'm holding Cole Beasley, and we'll get into that because of the John Brown situation. We'll get into that after Zach Moss. But I'm holding Cole Beasley because of the John Brown situation. Zach Moss, I think he's droppable to me. I can understand why people are high on him. You know, he was the starlet of the training camp, was getting all the rub. Singletary was having fumble issues, but Singletary really hasn't had fumble issues, and he's getting a lot of the work, even with Moss being healthy a few weeks in there. So I'm willing to drop Moss. And John Brown, I mean, he's so good when he's healthy and explosive, but I'm not willing to hold him just because Cole Beasley's emerging. The tight ends are getting a lot of targets now, and it's really still running through Diggs right now. I don't think that there's enough for Cole, Beasley, and Diggs, and I think Brown's the odd man out.
See, I feel a little bit differently about Beasley versus Brown, and that's what kind of makes this fun, right? But those situations are intertwined, so Beasley has value if John Brown is out. I think John Brown's on the verge of coming back for good, so for me, Cole Beasley you can drop. He's not a no-brainer drop, but I lean towards dropping him. I don't think he'll be a comfortable start many weeks the rest of the year. So I'm more down on him. I would drop him. And then Zach Moss, I want to hold or pick up if I have an extra spot. He looked better than Singletary last week. And outside of the injury, he might have overtaken him earlier in the year. Now, the upside's a little bit capped with Josh Allen being the goal line back. I mean, we keep saying that. But I just don't think there's many guys on your waiver wire at the end of your bench who could possibly provide like Zach Moss if Singletary got hurt. So I kind of like to hold him there. If you're in a super pinch, obviously you can drop. He's not a sure thing, but I like his upside. And then John Brown, he might have been dropped out of frustration in a bunch of leagues. If you have him, I'm holding him. Reports show that he's looking like on the way back, even though he's left a few games. You're probably not too happy about it. But I prefer John Brown to Cole Beasley the rest of the way. So I'm holding Brown, dropping Beasley, and holding Zach Moss. So next on our list is Adrian Peterson. I mean, 20 years later, it feels like after he entered the league, we're still discussing his fantasy relevance. But for me, he's a drop. The Swift is finally becoming the number one guy. Peterson was getting a bunch of carries early on, but he still wasn't a guy you were looking to start ever, unless you absolutely needed to. And now with Swift kind of making his emergence as an elite kind of back, talent-wise, I don't think they're going to feed him only. But I much prefer Swift to Peterson, so I'm looking to get out of Peterson, even if it means going to pick up a handcuff like we discussed before, Madison, Latavius Murray. Somebody like that's available. I'm dropping Adrian Peterson for that kind of upside.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. It looks like Swift's, they're phasing him to take over. And there's rumors that they're trying to trade Carry-On. Not that would really affect the situation at all, but it's kind of worth to note maybe. Adrian may have more value in that situation, but that's just hypotheticals and Twitter insiders. So I'm dropping Adrian Peterson. So he's not the guy anymore. I mean, he still has juice, but like we said, Swift's getting the rub right now, and Swift's taking over. So you cut ties with Adrian Peterson at this point. Let's get into the boom and bust wide receiver, Henry Ruggs. I think you hold him. I mean, there's not really receivers there outside of Waller, the tight end. And, they've been throwing the ball. Josh Jacobs hasn't been running so great. I think they keep having to throw the ball. If you can hold Henry, I'm holding him. But, I mean, he is expendable to an extent. I mean, he's not really producing right now. But I would like to hold him if you have an extra spot on your bench.
For me, Henry Ruggs, I don't really want to hold him at all. So if I'm that owner, I'm dropping him. I mean, we're thinking about him being a first-round pick, super fast, and I think he had one or two big catches in the first game back from injury that kind of got us, all starry-eyed about him. But I just don't see him ever showing enough to be a rosterable guy versus Nelson Aguilar, who I still don't advise you pick up, but he's even been better than Ruggs. Yeah. Carr is going to be low volume as much as anybody. I don't really want any part of the Raiders' passing game outside of Darren Waller.
I get that. Last but not least, the last one on the list, Darius Slayton. And to me, you have to hold him. He's such a good wide receiver. It's just a shitty situation right now with the Giants. And you can see it sometimes, he does connect and it's, a bomb touchdown or he's, a 30-yard gain because he's actually a really good receiver. He would be balling anywhere, but he's there with Daniel Jones and the Giants. He's definitely a hold to me.
So, I mean, we have to mention Sterling Shepard returned last week and looked to, at least in one game, be the number one there. But I'm still probably going to hold Darius Slayton because we've seen what he can do. He puts together more 2-touchdown games than a lot of people. And I think we at least hold him through his Week 11 bye because I think he's dinged up right now and that's holding him back. And the Giants are going to continue to get blown out. I would assume Daniel Jones gets a little better as the season goes on. Evan Ingram's being talked about as a possible trade target. So while I don't love Slayton, I'm still going to hold him. I think that there's enough upside versus a lot of the guys we talked about to make him worth it. So the next segment, we're going to touch on a few guys. Start off with some that we're looking to kind of trade away, sell high that we don't want for the stretch. And then a couple that we want to acquire, looking to make playoffs and then win a championship.
Let's get right into it. Ronald Jones. If you could trade him away right now with value and people maybe not thinking too much into Leonard Fournette getting a lot of carries and whatnot, I would get out of that for whatever value you could because it looks like it's going to be a split and Leonard Fournette may take the backfield over. I mean, that's just hypothetical, but, I mean, Leonard Fournette doesn't look that bad. Even though he had the injury and whatnot, he came back, looked pretty decent. He had that one game he was doing busty runs. I would get out right now if you could. Definitely trade away Ronald Jones.
So I'm going to kind of give a scenario. Let's say that Ronald Jones is more of your flex guy right now. He's not one of your top two backs. Would you trade him for Cooper Kupp for that flex role?
Ooh, I think so. I think I would. Cooper Kupp's kind of been having the duds, but I think he will straighten it out and probably have more touchdowns in the second half than he did in the first half of the season. Even though I think Woods has a more steady role in that offense. I think we're going to get that in a little bit later, but I definitely would do that trade for Kupp.
Yeah, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves with the Rams receivers, but basically what we're saying is Ronald Jones is more of a sell-high candidate. I mean, what we got from him in those few weeks without Fournette was incredible. Whoever had him was thrilled because they probably didn't spend a lot of draft capital on him. Maybe even picked him up. Fuck you, Tyler. But at this point, with Fournette being kind of back and forth, he's not a every week start anymore. And some people probably haven't caught up to that notion. So if you could trade him for comparable RB2s, out there, I'm looking to move him if possible. I don't think he's a high-end 2 going forward.
Next on the list, Melvin Gordon, coming off a pretty decent game, but not like the other back in the backfield. Philip Lindsay was busty. I think he had 9 touches for 79 yards or something like that. Just straight running through arm tackles. Melvin Gordon has had the touchdowns and he has a decent stat line right now, but it looks like they're truly going to split the work with maybe even Phillip getting more of the first down work because it kind of looked like that at the beginning of the game. Right now, Philip Lindsay has the concussion, so Melvin Gordon is insured 1 week of starting role, and he's had decent games so far. So if you could trade him away for some value, I would definitely do it right now because you're going to have a scenario in a couple weeks when they're splitting again. You're not going to really be wanting to start him, and you're not going to be able to get a good trade for him. So trade away Melvin Gordon right now while you can.
Yeah, I mean, I feel pretty strongly the same way. So the beginning of that game, Melvin Gordon got stripped for a fumble. From that point forward, it was Philip Lindsay getting the carries, and he looked excellent until he left with a concussion. Melvin Gordon scores a touchdown after that, gets a lot of carries. Even though he had another fumble on a flea flicker. I mean, that's still unusual. I don't think they'll run that play again with him in there. But he just chunked it over Drew Lock's head. It was incredible. But all to say that is, with Lindsay back, it's probably a 50-50 timeshare. And Melvin Gordon, he might get another start. It looks like Lindsay very well could miss next weekend's game. And so this is kind of your only window to move him if you don't have a use for him long term. Yeah. I will touch on, in a league or two, I'm looking to get him just because I've been devastated by RB injuries. I need a warm body, but I'm well aware that this next week or two is probably the peak of rest of season Melvin Gordon because Philip Lindsay just straight up looks better. So the name value, the touchdowns he scored, you could probably move him, and it's now or never if you're going to look to do that.
Yeah, okay. Now going off those two, those are people that are kind of easier to trade away, as in like they have pretty good value and games where you can kind of be deceptive and maybe move them. Now this next one is really league dependent and situation dependent, but Mike Davis, it doesn't look like CMC is coming back this week, so this is the last week you'll be able to move Mike Davis for anything. You're not going to be able to start him when CMC comes back, and the likeliness of CMC getting hurt again after taking more time than they thought to get healthy, it's unlikely. So if you could trade Mike Davis right now for Tampa D, I would do that because you're not going to be able to start him, and that owner is tired of waiting for CMC to come back. Give him a back to start this week. If you could get anything for Mike Davis, do it. I'm trading away Mike Davis right now.
I like what you said. I didn't even think about it, but Tampa Bay defense, it's getting creative. Some people don't value the defense. But like we said, Mike Davis, it's only this week. So find the owner who needs somebody this week that owns, Chris Carson, a couple guys that are banged up, and get anything you can in return from him that you would prefer to hold because starting next week, he's probably going to be a waiver wire bound guy. So I do agree in Mike Davis. Now on the positive side, some guys that we want to go trade for, buy low per se. We'll start off with Stefan Diggs. Now, the owner's probably still looking to hold him more than anything, but he's had 2 very down games along with Josh Allen in general, and I think that what we saw early from him is going to be the more common outcome rather than what we've seen lately. So if the owner right now is a little tilted, unsure of the Buffalo passing D, I would look to acquire Stefan Diggs, and I think he's a RB wide receiver 1-2 borderline the rest of the way. I'm not fazed by the last 2 weeks is what I'm saying. I would still buy him at his value.
Yeah, he had the rainy game with KC, right? And then this pass down game, which was kind of weird. But depending on where the guy drafted Stefan Diggs, if he was RB heavy and Stefan Diggs one of his first receivers, he's probably not looking to trade him. But if, he got Stefan Diggs kind of late, has other receivers, he might be willing to trade him. I'm definitely down to trade for Stefan Diggs. We talked about it earlier in the season when the offense was rolling. He looked good. He's definitely a back-end wide receiver 1 and a wide receiver 2 floor kind of deal, I think, going forward. So I'm definitely willing to trade for Stefan Diggs. As long as you're not, paying for the full value of Stefan Diggs, I'm willing to trade for him right now, 100%.
So, him versus Allen Robinson. Looking at the two, I consider Diggs a souped-up version. A better version of Allen Robinson. Yeah. They're both a target hog, but I kind of want Diggs more, and I think you could get him cheaper than an Allen Robinson.
Definitely.
So that's what we're kind of getting at.
Yeah, let's get right into the last trade forward. We kind of teased it earlier, Greg, going with the hypothetical, but we're going with both of them. Rams receivers. trade for. They're not. I mean, Woods has had the better weeks than Kupp recently, and it looks like Woods has a more secure kind of floor role. He's getting more work per week, but I'm willing to trade for both of them right now. Looks like a great scenario. You could get them for less than their actual value, especially Woods. I mean, the Kupp owner probably drafted him a little bit higher. He had more little average draft position going into the Kupp did than Woods going into the drafts, fantasy drafts that is. But yeah, either one, Woods or Kupp, I think Woods would be easier to get for lesser value, and I think he finishes the season with more touchdowns. But I want both of them for the low right now.
I'm in the same boat. I want them both. And yeah, Robert Woods, that owner might, his name doesn't hold as much value as Cooper Kupp, just to kind of your average person, so he's probably easier to acquire. But both of them, the owner's probably in the dumps. They haven't been what you thought, but I still think long haul they're wide receiver twos and pretty safe in that role with a lot of guys getting hurt elsewhere. So the Rams receivers, I'm looking to go get, like we said earlier, Ronald Jones. If I'm using both these guys in a flex role, I would happily move Ronald Jones for either of the Rams receivers. So that's kind of the buying low off them coming off lower end games versus the higher end game from a Ronald Jones. So I would acquire both Rams receivers if the price is reasonable.
Especially if a PPR situation, even half PPR, any form of PPR, in that hypothetical right there with Rojo and the Rams receivers, I'm doing that 100%.
Definitely. Ronald Jones is going to lose that passing game work to Fournette. So we touch on that enough, but
yeah,
we try to sell high on him. So lastly, what we're going to talk about is a couple more deep stashes for your waiver wire bench, just to keep you a week or two ahead of when everybody's going to be putting in claims or just really trying to scoop these guys. So we've got 5 people for you that we think ahead of the curve you should look to pick up if you got a spot.
Yeah, and these are kind of how we did it last week. We talked about players to not scoop this week, but maybe at the end on the Sunday, when someone on your bench, you're like, oh, he's droppable, kind of pick one of these guys up, whichever one fits your team kind of deal. Because last week we talked about Tevin Coleman, and he's probably scooped up in your league right now. So let's get into the first one, Dallas Goddard. Now, Zach Ertz got hurt, and even with Zach Ertz playing at the beginning of the season, Dallas Goddard was getting a bunch of the big looks downfield that we thought Zach Ertz had, but Goddard looks better than Ertz. He's running routes better than Ertz, and Ertz is hurt, and even when Ertz was healthy, he wasn't doing anything. Dallas Goddard's a great tight end one to hold and have for this finishing little run into the postseason that you can have right now.
Yeah, if you could hold him for 2 or 3 weeks, knowing that it might take that to get the start out of him, he's definitely worth it. He'll be one of the tight ends to own later on.
I think his potential start week is week 10, so keep that in mind here. So it is going to be a little 2-week lengthy hold, but I think the production will be worth it.
The tight ends are just so skimpy right now that he's a guy, if you got it, hold him, or at least this coming weekend, he's probably somebody you want to prioritize. Next up is Allen Lazard. So a report came out today that he is starting to practice. That doesn't mean he's going to play this week. I doubt it. Maybe next week, week 9. I would say for certain week 10. So if you're looking for a wide receiver, if you're kind of thin there to start in weeks 9 or 10, Lazard, last we saw him, he was kind of becoming the number 2 by a long shot. And the Packers are, better than they've been in recent years in the past game. So Lazard, if you have an open spot, this might be the time to get ahead of the curve, pick him up 1 week before everybody else does. He's going to come back in the next 2 or 3 weeks, and he should have a starting role most of the weeks unless you're really heavy at that position. So Lazard's a good guy to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I think his designated return is next week. I don't think it's this week, so it's not a 2-week hold, so it's kind of more potential play quick, and I like that a lot. Let's go right into another receiver. Now, he looked good at the beginning of the season, was catching some bombs, but got tackled, didn't turn them into touchdowns when one of them was really close. Jalen Reagor. It's a weird situation over there with the Eagles. We've slandered enough gingers on this podcast, but the receivers is a weird situation too. Greg Ward looked good, and then Fulgham came out of nowhere, and he's kind of sucking up targets and looking good. But I think Jalen Reagor is way better than Fulgham, and I think that he might take that role from Fulgham. So I like him as a really good deep hold for. I don't know his designated return. I think it's in next week, but I like that a lot. definitely if you have someone to drop, someone has a dud, you're holding on to somebody, I would scoop him up.
And so we've ripped plenty on Carson Wentz, but, I mean, we have to acknowledge he's been pretty good.
Recently.
Yeah, the last couple weeks he's been pretty good.
We don't want to admit it as gingers, but...
No, but Deshaun Jackson is going to IR. Alshon Jeffrey, I don't know if he'll ever make it back.
Yeah.
There's always talk about it. So Rager's probably going to find himself getting a lot of routes run. So you could do worse if you're looking for a deep stash on a receiver that's going to be impactful in 3 or 4 weeks. So I like that pickup.
And the next one isn't really an early waiver target. I mean, this is like if he's there right now, you need to get him. I don't know why he wouldn't be. He looks pretty good. If you're watching like the actual games, like he looks really good. He was having a bunch of good catches, contested catches last week. Logan Thomas, with Kyle Allen being the quarterback right now, just slinging that thing like we thought he would. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. If Kyle Allen would take the rollover, it kind of bumps everyone up in the receiving game. That kind of adds a startable value to Logan Thomas right now, especially with the only other person being McLaurin out there in the pass game. Logan Thomas should be owned. If he's there right now, he's not a future hold. He's a pickup right now, even though they're on the bye because tight ends are scarce right now.
Definitely. I mean, like guys we touched on earlier, Jimmy Graham and Tyler Higbee. Logan Thomas is a much better hold and start weekly than them right now. So, yeah, if you need tight end help, you could do a lot worse than picking up Logan Thomas. It seems like Kyle Allen will be the starter the remaining of the season unless he gets hurt. And in that case, Logan Thomas will be startable at the very least.
Yeah, and we had kind of misspoke on a previous podcast. We do that, and we don't really correct ourselves. We're sorry about that. Des Bryant wasn't on the practice squad yet. He got signed to the practice squad yesterday. Today is Wednesday, so that was Tuesday. And there was some training camp practice footage that came out today. Little one-hand catch. I mean, we didn't get to see how he was running, but I mean, the hands are still there. The super deep target, but Des Bryant, I mean, if you're in a pickle or you have an extra spot, you know, your league bumped up the bench for COVID and you have an extra spot and, you know, you just want that kind of maybe potential upside hold, like you could do worse than Des Bryant if you're sitting pretty. Now, if you're not sitting pretty, don't fuck with Des Bryant. I mean, that could amount to nothing. But if you're sitting pretty, you have an extra roster spot, you want a deep hold, Des Bryant's kind of that guy.
So those are some guys we like to kind of keep an eye on because these next couple weeks, our podcasts are going to be very heavy on roster management because these weeks are crucial with bye weeks. Each spot is valuable on your bench and your starting lineup. So we're not going to really touch on matchups. We hope y'all like what we had for y'all. We're going to keep coming with it. We got an episode on Friday coming, more roster management stuff, looking ahead. And do not forget, on Sunday, around kickoff, to check on our Twitter. You're going to see a video of Hunter drinking a delicious Golden Four Loko. You got anything to add?
No, you stunned me with the Loco. I'm just going to have nightmares tonight. Yeah, it's for the fan bros. Tune in. We'll post it immediately after.
Thanks for joining, everybody.